Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. It's May 9th, Russia's most important holiday. Russia holds Victory Day parade in Moscow. Today is the day that Russians teach their children of Russia's mighty achievements in the Great Patriotic War. Yes, it's true. Russia single-handedly defeated Nazi Germany and liberated all of Europe. Definitely weren't any Australians, Canadians, or Kiwis on this beach in France. These all must be Russians. And definitely nobody helped Russia. They achieved this on their own, under the glorious leadership of the mighty Stalin. Definitely no Nazi country in North America supplied all of this stuff and equipment. Russian manufacturing overcame German manufacturing. RAF, what does that stand for? I think this stands for Russians Actually for Real. Russia's the one who conducted nightly bombing raids on all of Germany's cities in order to cripple their war machine. This holiday is a joke. Russia twists their history to promote this narrative that they're the good guys, that anyone they attack is justified. All you have to do is call them a Nazi, and every Russian from birth is trained to attack and kill Nazis. I struggle to define what exactly is a Nazi, and according to the Russians, anyone who doesn't want to be invaded is a Nazi. So if you want to watch the whole parade, I'll link this clip down below. The parade was just under 90 minutes, and it's a bunch of pretty white boys from Moscow and St. Petersburg. These pretty white boys aren't allowed to get their fingernails dirty fighting in Ukraine. These are the protected youth of the elite of Russia's most important cities, and they're reserved for the parades. You're not going to see any ethnic minorities marching in these columns. And it was actually snowing, so I think a lot of these Russian soldiers might get sick or catch pneumonia. But let me share just a little bit of what the parade looked like in the snow.
Отдельного комендантского Преображенского полка, представляющий 3 вида вооруженных сил: сухопутные войска, воздушно-космические силы и военно-морской флот. На марше...
Snowing in May. Jeez. And just like last year, there was only a single solitary T-34 tank. Fun fact about the T-34, it was designed and manufactured in Ukraine.
Расчеты механизированной колонны. В ее составе 61 единица боевой техники, стоящей на вооружении российской армии.
Just one single sad tank, because all their real tanks are being blown up in Ukraine. Also wasn't any aviation, no flyovers. It's just not safe for these planes, and they don't really have many planes to spare these days. What was the highlight of the parade? And the highlight for me was a shoe was lost from one of these parading soldiers, and nobody could break formation to pick it up. So the entire Russian military parade just continued walking over this solitary shoe. That shoe is a symbol of resistance to Russian fascism. Here's Putin taken to the podium, leading his glorious troops in a round of hurrah.
Hurrah!
Not as good as the old-fashioned Sieg Heil, but Russia's doing their best. Nobody's scared of you, Russia. Nobody's intimidated anymore. These military parades have exposed you as being brittle and weak, You're getting your ass kicked in Ukraine, and you're going to lose this war. Fascism has won in Russia decades after World War II. There was a golden opportunity in the 90s for Russia to transition to a real democracy, real capitalism, real economic growth and prosperity for their people. But Putin managed to destroy all of that, to stay in power for life, and to try and rebuild the Russian Empire. It's not going so great. And when we talk about World War II and Nazis, we have to remind the world every single day that the Russians and the Nazis were military allies under the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. They agreed with each other that they would both invade Poland and divide it up. And the division of Poland is what caused World War II. The Russians started World War II with the Nazis. They even had a military parade. Nazis and Russians marching arm in arm as brothers in September of 1939 to celebrate their invasion and destruction of the country of Poland. F these guys. Here's the tweet from President Zelensky on Remembrance and Victory over Nazism in World War II Day. Nazi Putin launched a massive missile attack on Ukraine. Over 50 missiles and more than 20 Shahid drones targeted infrastructure in Lviv, Vinnytsia, Kyiv, Zaporizhia. All necessary services are already working to mitigate the consequences of Russian terror. The entire world must understand who is who. The world must not give a chance to new Nazism in Europe. The track record doesn't look great. Ukraine is trying to reload all these air defense missiles, move them around, protect their cities. But it's a constant game of cat and mouse. Russia is always willing to try new things to have their missiles successfully hit hospitals and power plants and schools. Combination of different types of missiles, combination of different types of drones. It's a mess. Ukraine is doing their best. But the people of Ukraine are going to have to suffer. Ukraine to impose nationwide electricity restriction on Wednesday evening. Ukraine is being forced to import as much power as possible from the EU, but it's going to get bad. It's going to get worse before it gets better concerning their energy infrastructure. So what's Ukraine's response? We all knew they were planning something to disrupt Russia's May 9th celebrations. And last evening, they did conduct a lot of drone attacks on Russian oil refineries. Ukraine hits 2 oil depots in Russia's Krasnodar region. So here's Krasnodar, it's east of Crimea. There were 2 separate oil depots that were struck. I'll link these videos down below as always, but I'm not going to play them. Drone strike causes blaze at oil refinery in Russia's Salvat. This is 1,300 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory. Here's the map. You can see this refinery is north of Kazakhstan. There is a video online. Once again, I'll link all this down below. In a first, drone attacks an oil refinery in Russia's Bashkortostan. Bashkortostan is where those protests were a couple months ago when a local environmental activist was arrested. And this is pretty far. This is like 1,400, 1,500 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory. What Ukraine has been doing is purchasing these very small aircraft and converting them into pilotless drones capable of packing in a lot of explosives. So Russia's oil refineries are being hit. Missile strike hits oil depot in occupied Luhansk. ATACMS reportedly used. This is occupied territory, so Ukraine showed this oil depot some love by firing an ATACMS missile at it. This is the satellite image of what the damage kind of looks like. You can see the brown ones are the ones that have been burnt out from the attack. And once again, I'll link the video down below. So let's talk about this. Here's an interesting article from Foreign Affairs. Why Ukraine should keep striking Russian oil refineries. The US's fears about energy markets are actually misplaced. So here's the argument to counter statements or thinking from the White House. Washington's criticism is misplaced. Attacks on oil refineries will not have the effect on global energy markets that the US fears. These strikes reduce Russia's ability to turn its oil into usable products. They do not affect the volume of oil it can extract or export. In fact, the less domestic refining capacity, Russia will be forced to export more of its crude oil, not less, pushing down global energy prices instead of causing them to increase. Indeed, Russian firms have already started selling more unrefined oil overseas. As long as they remain restricted in Russian refineries, the attacks are unlikely to raise the price of oil for Western consumers. This is pretty clever, but Ukraine is not striking wells, pumping stations. They seem to be okay with Russia continuing to pump and pull oil out of the ground. They're going after refineries, very sensitive and complicated equipment to distill and refine raw oil into gasoline, diesel, synthetics, plastics, whatever. So by going after just the refineries, they're forcing Russia to actually sell more of their raw crude on the open markets. As long as there is excess refining capacity around the world in countries like India, we can still produce enough gasoline, we can still produce enough diesel, we can still produce enough plastics or fertilizer or whatever. It's interesting, but the charts don't lie. Ukraine has been striking these oil refineries since January, and the price of ICE Brent crude, global price for oil, is more or less $84 a barrel. It's still the same. The only difference is Russia is now having to pay a premium to import gasoline and diesel from their neighbors rather than being able to produce it themselves. More bad news for Russia. Another Su-25 was shot down. This was in the Avdiivsky direction in Ukraine. No information how it was shot down. A massive fire has broken out at the port in Kamchatka. This is Russia's Far East. Ukraine had nothing to do with this, but massive fires seem to break out frequently inside of Russia. Polish border guards arrest a Russian army deserter. So a Russian army member made it to Belarus, had to get across Belarus, and got to the Polish border and surrendered himself. Will he be taken in as prisoner of war or given amnesty as a defector? I don't know, but this guy's pretty smart. When we check in with the military map, Russia's made no progress in the last couple days. Putin really wanted to take the city of Chasiv Yar prior to May 9th, but they're not even across this canal that divides Chasiv Yar, so they're not making progress. Concerning the salience from Ocheretny, this really hasn't moved in a week. I do believe that frontline units are pulling in reserves. They're getting ammunition, they're getting artillery shells, and they're plugging this gap. This might be the top story of the day. Lithuania is ready to deploy training troops to Ukraine, though Ukraine has not formally requested this. Lithuania's prime minister says she has parliamentary permission to deploy training troops to Ukraine, but is waiting for Ukraine to formally request. Lithuania is not scared of Russian threats. Wow. Lithuania is sandwiched between Kaliningrad and Belarus. If the Russians take action on the Baltics, Lithuania is going to be destroyed first. So Lithuania is committed everything they have to making sure that Ukraine prevails. And this is the correct move. I think the first Western soldiers, the first NATO troops to formally go to Ukraine should be from the Baltics. Russia's already planning to kill all of them anyways. But as soon as Lithuania does it, maybe Finland does it, maybe Poland does it, then the nuclear powers might come next. UK, France, the United States. This is about sending trainers, sending specialists, sending medical workers, medical doctors. There's a lot that NATO can be doing in support positions. I don't think any of these soldiers will be on a trench in the front line at risk of being captured. But Ukraine needs maintainers. They need logisticians. They need all the help they can get in vital support roles. So I want to play this clip from the Foreign Affairs Minister of Lithuania. He appeared on the TV show BBC Hard Talk. And this guy is super sharp, super bright, very, very good at arguing Lithuania's position. So this is a highlight clip that he posted talking about several issues. But the issue of sending Lithuania troops to Ukraine was talked about.
Is your message to Western partners, ignore it. It's simply a bluff. Forget about the Russians being the most powerful nuclear weapons state in the world. It's irrelevant. He'll absolutely never use them. Is that your message?
I would ask a question, can we count the times that he did that in the past? And I tell you, that's a number of times. He said
it's all bluff.
It was always a bluff. He has nothing to gain from it. He has all to lose. We're sending a very clear signal to Putin: if you threaten us, we back down. So now we have to ask a question. If he would attack another country and threaten with tactical nukes, what would we do?
In Washington, in Berlin, in London, and of course in Moscow, they have to really consider very carefully the strategic realities in a way that perhaps living in Vilnius, you're a little bit divorced from actual responsibility.
Well, we're not divorced from actual reality.
Well, that's true.
We are, a country that is a frontline country.
Would you in Lithuania be prepared to send your own men and women to fight in Ukraine?
I think it cannot be moved out from the table. And this is, I've been very clear from the very start, that Lithuania will be part of any coalition that will help Ukraine win.
Lithuania is a frontline country, and they will do anything to help Ukraine win. This is the map of the Russian Empire, maximum extent achieved in 1918. The Russians had attacked and conquered Finland. The Russians had attacked and conquered the Baltics, attacked and conquered Poland, Ukraine, Moldova, the Caucasus. This is the map that Putin stares at every day, saying, "Mine. It's mine." So if Russia can somehow succeed in Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, the Baltics, they're next, but eventually Poland and Finland. This is not my speculation. This is what the Russians admit every day on Kremlin state TV. So here's Solyov talking about Finland, how Finland desperately wants to return to the Russian Empire. I always felt that the Finns wanted to go back to the Russian Empire. I had this feeling that they are like an abandoned people, constantly trying to draw attention to themselves somehow. The dream of the Russian Empire is pounding hard in the heart of the Finnish fisherman. We'll help the Finnish fisherman if he acts that crazy. Russia's never going to get there, but we have to stop them. These wars will go on for decades, millions of people dead, unless Ukraine can prevail today. I want to follow up on this US soldier that was dumb enough to travel to Vladivostok to visit his Russian mistress, and I guess he was there for a couple days before being arrested, and he probably did have some kind of domestic argument. She then called the cops. He was trying to recuperate maybe money or material he gave to her. But it looks so bad. I'm going to share this clip. And in this clip, this Russian woman, her name is Alexandra, she's making fun of him. referring to this staff sergeant as my Pindos, which is a Russian slur for Americans. And this clip is absolutely cringeworthy.
Я тут пришла домой, и тут какой-то пиндос. Что за нафиг? Кто ты? Кто ты, человек? Хую. Господи. А еще прикол. Еще в роли. Так, мама скажет вот это, Катюса.
This Russian woman never respected this guy. This guy is allowing himself to be filmed by a Russian citizen in his battle uniform. This patch on his left shoulder reads, let's see here, Whiteman NCO Academy, CAT USA Training Academy. And I'm staring at this video, looking at his job badges. You can see on his chest above US Army, he's got these three patches. And I'm pretty confident that he's a medical worker. I can tell from this patch, US Army Combat Medical. He could be a dental worker or a nurse or something related to the med group, but I don't think the Russians targeted him or wanted him specifically for any knowledge he had. He's just an idiot chasing this Russian girl to Russia, and if Russia has an excuse to grab him and hold him, they will. In my opinion, this man is guilty of desertion. He did not tell his unit where he was going or where he would be, and when you're serving on active duty, you can't do that. So yeah, he's guilty of desertion, but the United States is still going to get him back. Even if you're an idiot, the United States is not going to leave any other soldiers behind. If the U.S. didn't get him back, this would weaken confidence in other soldiers put in tough positions, whether they would be retrieved as well. So he is a top priority. The United States is going to get him back, but as I mentioned in my last video, his life is ruined. His marriage is ruined, his career is ruined, all because he believed Russian propaganda. He said in a video, NATO is the aggressor, Russia is the victim, Russia's just trying to defend themselves. And in the clip, he also mentioned he was a Trump supporter, saying that he would prefer if Trump were president again, because Trump could fix this problem. He could solve the war between Russia and Ukraine in 24 hours. But Donald Trump isn't coming to this guy's defense, which is bizarre to me. No tweets from Donald Trump demanding that the Russians release him. Trump's not offering to fly to Moscow to get this guy back. And I want to share these primary results from yesterday. Donald Trump is the presumptive nominee, but we're still having primaries even though the contest is over. And these are protest voters. These are Republican primary voters showing up at the polls to vote against Trump in the Republican primary. This is the state of Indiana. And Nikki Haley got 22% of the primary vote. Nikki Haley dropped out of the race 2 months ago. But 1 in 5 Republican primary voters don't support Trump. These are not good stats for the nominee of a party. And I do think that Mike Johnson and MAGA Republicans have done a lot of damage to the credibility of the Republican Party, and it will impact them in November. Talking about Russia and Ukraine is a losing issue for MAGA. Here's a recent poll from the Pew Research Center. Concern about Russia taking over Ukraine and then invading other countries has grown over the last 2 years. So this question, do you think Russia is going to invade other countries, not just Ukraine? And you can see extremely, very, somewhat, but it's at 65%. Despite all the Russian bots out there saying, Nazis in Ukraine, we're defending them, we're defending ourselves. After 2 years, Americans aren't buying it. 65% of Americans agree Russia is the aggressor. Ukraine is the victim, and Russia's not done. These wars will never end unless we help Ukraine win today. So let's get to the good news for Ukraine. It was announced the first 180,000 artillery shells from the Czech initiative will arrive in the month of June. So Ukrainian defenders just have to hold out for another 3.5 weeks, and then they're going to have the guns, they're going to have the bullets, they're going to have the ammo to repel all of these attacks from the Russians. Poland announced they will continue paying for subscriptions for over 20,000 Starlink terminals to help Ukrainians have internet and communication access. Thank you so much to the people of Poland. Latvia has donated an additional 100,000 euros worth of communication equipment to an IT coalition to help Ukraine. Thank you so much to the people of Latvia. Sweden has allocated another 28 million euros to several funds in support of Ukraine. Thank you so much to the people of Sweden. Final clip I want to share with you once again is from friend of the channel, Richard Woodruff. He's with Frontline Kits. And if I were to visit Ukraine, this is probably something I would make a video about, but he visited a Ukrainian gas station, and they look pretty nice.
Okay, so in Ukraine, these are the petrol stations. Let me show you. You can literally get yourself a duck at the petrol station. Can you get that anywhere in England? I don't think so. And if you want to know the petrol station, look no further. Orko.
You can get fresh duck and salmon at a gas station in Ukraine. Gas stations here in the United States can't compete with that. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.